What's up, guys? Hey, give me just a second here. I'm trying to get everything balanced out. That sounds super loud. Maybe I just need to back up a little bit. I don't want to be screaming comic books at you. All right, I've got I've got so much stuff different set up in different places than I normally do for my regular stream. So hang on just a second. So one thing I don't have is this right here. There shouldn't. I don't have an overlay set up for like when we just start talking out. Hey, I'm usually sort of more or less prepared. But yeah, so just imagine that there's something cool here. There's nothing that needs to go here for this show tonight, but I don't have an overlay that's like this without this. So just pretend it's not there. So I'm going to get that fixed up. But I do have two new ones for what we're going to do. So basically, the idea for this is that and I'll go ahead and say I don't know how well this is going to go. I'm not super great at doing this kind of stuff by myself, but I'm going to give it a shot because I love comic books, and I've been reading some. I've been reading old school Marvel. Well, let me back up. I've been reading comics for like 30 years. Love Marvel. Used to be exclusively a Marvel zombie. And then I dabbled in DC with the big events: Death of Superman, Return of Superman, Batman getting his back broken, and all the Nightfall, Night Quest stuff with Azrael, and dabbled in some Robin stuff, and that was actually about it. Basically, Superman and Batman were the only ones that I really cared to do too much with. But then in 2008, I just got a wild hair. Hey, I want to read some DC, so I started with Jeff Johns' Green Lantern Rebirth run, and it just that sealed the deal for me on DC for forever. So I but there was a lot I didn't know. I knew all the characters, I knew all the basics. I didn't know the histories, the backstories, the fine details of all these characters. So that started several years worth of learning and reading, and now I've caught up pretty much with everything. So all that to say, I love Marvel. I love DC. I love a lot of stuff in Image. I've been reading some stuff at Valiant. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I like it all. Well, I don't like it all, but I'm not. I'm certainly not one of those hardcore this publisher anti this publisher. I like all of it. I just like good stories, good art, good comics, good characters, all that stuff. So what happened was I've been reading comics for most of my life. Starting with when the pandemic hit and everything closed down. I already work at home all the time anyway. I don't go out very often anywhere, so it didn't affect me too much. But at the same time, when everything closed down, I did still find myself kind of wanting to do something new. Let's start something new to sort of keep myself busy since I can go out even less than I already do. So, actually, today's the 23rd. So, 3 months and 3 days ago, on May 20th, I dusted off an old Twitter account that I didn't use anymore. I renamed it to at underscore. Actually, I renamed it to at comics underscore daily underscore, which I later changed. So, it's at underscore comics daily. And my goal was, I was like, you know what? I'm going to read a comic book every single day because I went through all these patches of. I would read a few. It was like binge watching something on Netflix. You go real hard on a show. You go all in on a show. You watch it and then you're done. And then you're like, I don't really know what to watch for a while. I'm just gonna sort of fiddle around with whatever else. And that's kind of how I've been going about comics the last few years. Is I'll get real heavy into Batman for a while, and I'll read a bunch of trades of Batman because I'm usually a couple years behind on all my comics anyway. One other thing to note: I read everything basically on Marvel Unlimited or DC Universe. I don't really buy too many comics anymore, and I read everything digitally. Surely for the fact that I don't much care about the collecting aspect anymore. Rob Liefeld, actually, I like the way he puts it in his Robservation podcast. He refers to it as consuming comics, and that's what I like to think that I do. Is I don't really collect them anymore. I have tons of long boxes, thousands of comics from when I was a kid, but I don't really have a lot of the floppies anymore. I don't And actually, I have places to put them. I mean, it's not even a space thing. I just don't want to have all these books. I've moved so many times. I don't like to have to carry them around. So I just like having everything on my iPad here or what have you. So I read everything digitally. I forgot where I was going with that, but so yeah, 3 months ago, I was like, you know what? I want to not read. I want to get out of the habit of reading comics real hard for like a month and then not touching comics for 6 months and then going back in hard on them for a month and then not touching them again for 6 months. So May 20th, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start reading at least one every day, and I want to put something out there about them. You know, I want to put something out in the world about how fun these things can be, and maybe if it helps people find something to do, while we're all locked down, then that would be cool too. So I started the Comics Daily Twitter account, and I said, you know what? Spider-Man's my favorite. Spider-Man has always been my number one favorite of any publisher, any carrier, or any character, anything. Has always been my favorite since I was probably like 5 years old. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to read every Spider-Man. I'm going to read them all in order, starting with number one. I started with Amazing Spider-Man number one. I didn't read Amazing Fantasy because I've read it so many times. So I started with Amazing Spider-Man number one from 1963. And the next day I read number two. The next day I read number three. And all the while I would tweet out things, take screenshots, little humorous panels here and there. I would try to identify trends and, here's the third issue in a row where Peter is pining over Liz and Betty is pining over Peter, and, or this is how many... I do this thing where I keep count of how many times the word fella is used, like F-E-L-L-A, fella. Like, hey, look here, fella. Because apparently that was a big thing in the 60s where everybody was calling everybody fella. So the record is 6 fellas in one issue, but it's several issues that do it 6 times. So I keep waiting for 7, but and I don't know which ones they are. I've read so many in the last 3 months, I don't remember. But there's several issues that say fella 6 different times, or that somebody gets referred to as fella 6 times. So just things like that, just fun things like that, or keep track of first appearances. Hey, first appearance of the Green Goblin, or first appearance of Gwen Stacy, and I'll put so just anything that I think is noteworthy. I'll take a screenshot, make a little note, tweet it out. So every day you get this nice thread of little tidbits about a comic book. So I started doing that with Amazing Spider-Man, and I thought that was pretty good. And I was like, you know what? There are so many characters that I like that I've just never really dove into their history. So I started reading Fantastic Four. I started reading Fantastic Four once a week on Fridays, Fantastic Friday. And that was going good for a while. And then I was like, you know what? I want to read some Iron Man too. So I started reading Tales of Suspense, starting with number 39, his first appearance. And I started reading that every Monday, and I called it Iron Monday. But what was happening was it was weird because I was burning through Spider-Man every day, and I was only reading Iron Man and Fantastic Four once a week. I was like, this feels weird because I think it was like 2 years at the time. I was like, I'm 2 years deep into Spider-Man, and I'm only like a month deep into, or 2 months deep into Fantastic Four and Iron Man, and it's weird, So I started thinking, I want to experience these comics as they all came out back in the day. So like if I were a kid back in the 60s, I want to read these things today as I would have read them back then. So I put the brakes on Spider-Man, and I started reading Fantastic Four every day. And, so every single day was a new issue of Fantastic Four until I caught up to where I think it may have been like Daredevil number 1. I was like, okay, this month, so whatever month that was, 64, some month 64, that's when, that issue of Fantastic Four, but that also the same month that Daredevil came out. So I started picking up those 2 comics. And I read those 2 comics until I lined the release date up with Avengers, where I left off in Avengers. So I started reading that. So long story short, finally worked through all that. And now I have everything is synced up. It's almost like the Witcher series on Netflix. If you think about, if you watch that, and how you had all these different timelines bouncing around, you didn't know what was going on. But then at the very end of the season, all these timelines clicked, and they all tied together. And then now, from that point, you can go forward. So that's where I'm at now. Is I have finally got it to where each week on my @_comics daily Twitter account, each week covers one specific month of Marvel Comics. So, for example, this week, this show, we're going to talk about 6 of the comics that came out in September of 1966. So, starting last Sunday, which was the 16th, all through Friday, which was the 21st, I read one comic a day from September 1966. So we're going to cover, so I'll just real quick, I'll tell you. So basically we're going to cover, and I'm going to have some kind of thing on the screen so you know everything. Each week you'll know which comics we're talking about and which one I'm talking about at the time. So if you come in later, you'll know what I'm talking about. And what I would eventually like to do too is, this is just a stream on Twitch right now. What I'd eventually like to do is put this on YouTube if anybody is interested in watching it that way, and maybe eventually even release it as an audio podcast as well. But right now I'm just trying to get the feel for this. And every week is not going to be a long intro like this either. This is just a sort of an introductory thing. In subsequent weeks, we'll be able to just kind of dive right in. But so for today, we're going to cover Amazing Spider-Man number 40, Tales of Suspense number 81, Daredevil number 20, Avengers number 32, Strange Tales number 148, and Fantastic Four number 54. So those are the 6 books that I read that came out in September 1966. There were some, obviously there's some others as well. There's like Journey into Mystery, there's Tales to Astonish, there's X-Men. I feel like I'm leaving out a couple more big ones, but when I started doing this, I started thinking, I don't really want to read everything because I'm not really interested in everything. I don't love the early issues of X-Men. I can't get into them. So I was like, I'm not going to read X-Men. I've never been the biggest Thor fan in the world. I like him fine. I've read plenty of modern day Thor comics and I love him in the movies and stuff, but I can't get through the older Thor issues. So I was like, I'm not going to read Thor. I don't really need to read about Ant-Man and the Wasp, or I really don't like Namor, and I don't like the early Hulk stuff. So I'm definitely skipping Tales to Astonish. So that's not to say there's only 6 comics that came out in September 66. It's just the 6 comics that I decided to read. And the idea is that over time, so if you think of every week is 1 month, over time, I'm going to want to add more comics. Like whenever we eventually get to X-Men, maybe like around the time of Giant Size X-Men number 1, where you have Wolverine and Colossus and Nightcrawler, Storm, and all those guys. I might start, around the Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum days. I might add that to my virtual pull list, if you will, and then I'll start covering X-Men. Or whenever we get to Hulk number 100, or is it 102? Basically, wherever it is that Hulk breaks off into his own title and breaks out of Tales to Astonish, I might pick up Hulk. I'm really struggling with Avengers right now, because Avengers, I don't love these early issues of Avengers. It's the title I look forward to the least every week. I might drop that at some point if I find that I don't like it anymore. So it's going to be basically it's the virtual version of adding comics to your pull list, dropping books that you don't like anymore, that kind of thing. So, but those are the 6 books that I have decided to read for the time being. And I'm only reading 6 books a week, and there's 7 days in a week, so Saturdays are probably going to be something different. Yesterday, I covered DC Comics Presents, and I'm looking down here at 76, because that was the first. I was really hyped from the DC Fandom event yesterday. I had intended on reading Snake Eyes Endgame number 1 from Rob Liefeld that just came out, I want to say July. I haven't read it yet. But then I got so hyped with DC Fandom, I was thinking, you know what? I really want to read DC. And it was also my birthday yesterday, so I was like, you know what? Let me let me go back to where it all started with DC Comics presents number 76 from 1984, which was my first comic book ever. And actually, I don't know why I don't have it hung on a wall yet, but I actually have it in a frame. That's the first comic I ever read right there. They're the first comic I ever owned and read right there. And I put it in a frame. And I have it digitally too. So anyway, I covered that one yesterday. And there's so much stuff out there that I want to read. So, Saturdays are probably going to be the days that I read something else. So, if I want to read Snake Eyes or if I want to read another DC comic, there is a ton of stuff from Image that I want to read, and a lot of non-superhero stuff too. I can't remember. I was going to try to take a peek at my books on Comixology. There's a book called Undiscovered Country from Scott Snyder and Giuseppe Camuncoli. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Two of my favorite creators in comics right now. That sounds phenomenal. There's another one called Once and Future. The artist on that is Dan Mora, who I really love his work. I really want to read that. That's more of like a fantasy book set in modern day. I haven't read it yet, so I can't really tell you. But there's Batman Universe and there's all the DC Black Label stuff and so much stuff I want to get into. So Saturdays are going to be for that kind of stuff probably, and then also there's annuals. So whenever there's an annual. Those can be thrown in on Saturday as well. I actually have a Google spreadsheet that actually lays out every comic I'm going to read. And I think I have it stretched out to... I can tell you every comic I'll read and what day I'll read it on all the way through Christmas 2022. That takes us all the way through December 1976. And right now, we're only on September 1966. So we're actually... By the end of 2022, we'll have covered 10 years worth of Marvel Comics. So I think that's pretty cool. So, big, long, huge intro. Promise you they're not all going to be like this. But, yeah, I know, J-Dub, I definitely... I'd nerd out about this stuff, man. I love comic books. Comic books are probably my number one favorite medium of anything. Like, and I've always thought about it before, if you got stuck on a desert island and you could only take one form of entertainment with you, TV shows, movies, forget about the technology, how to do it. But I mean, whatever you need, you'll have. But you can only take video games, or you can take comic books, TV shows, music, movies, whatever. I'm pretty sure I would take comic books. I love comic books. And there's so many. I mean, there's, if you think about Marvel just from 1961 with the first appearance of Fantastic Four, what is that? That's like 60 years of comic books from just one company. DC goes back even further, and that's just two publishers. And then you've got all the great stuff from Image in the last 30 years. Well, all the stuff from Image from the last 30 years. Some of it's not so great. But all the cool stuff from Valiant, all the licensed stuff from IDW with Transformers and G.I. Joe and all that kinds of stuff. So I love comic books. And I could talk about them all day. I mean, I've already rambled for 20 minutes, and we haven't even got to what we're going to talk about yet. So, and I have another podcast to record at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and right now it's 8:30, so we need to get moving. So, this is the part where I'm going to ask you to bear with me because, like I said, I've never really done anything like this before. I can talk comics all day long. I can talk comics with other people, but I've never really just sat down and talked to a camera about specific comics and the stories and all that stuff. Plus, I read a lot of these either 2 days ago all the way back to a week ago, so I had to kind of look over my notes. And so I'll show you how much of a nerd I am. I keep notes. I take notes on the Notes app on my iPad, and then I move those over to Twitter later. And I've got notes for every issue of Amazing Spider-Man, and like they all have pictures, screenshots. So this is what I've been doing every day for the last 3 months, is doing stuff like this. And it's been fun. It's been a bit of a chore sometimes, but I'm going to go back to number... And if I ever release this one as an audio podcast, then sorry you can't see what all I did was hold up my iPad and show all my stupid notes. They're not even really notes. They're just musings about things. So anyway, let's flip over, and I've got it on my. Here we go. All right, so let me slide this. I'm just getting my windows arranged. I really could use a third monitor. Gonna write it off as a business expense. All right, so the first one we're going to start with is Amazing Spider-Man number 40. So I kind of wish I had started this with number 39, because to me, I don't know how many people. Well, this is a classic two-part story, and for me, the most notable thing is this is where number 39 from August of '66 is the first issue where the classic, the one of the greatest ever, John Romita Sr. took over on art. Steve Ditko had done the first 38 issues. Obviously, he was responsible for the look of Spider-Man. He co-created Spider-Man with Stan Lee. He did the first 38 issues, and he also did Doctor Strange, I think. This was number 39 was the first time John Romita took over the book. And John Romita is probably my favorite Spider-Man artist. He's the most classic. Think about classic Spider-Man with the small eyes, not a whole lot of real intricate detail with the webs. They're kind of spread far apart. You can actually see, you can see this, and I'm running these comics in the browser. I did originally experiment with having my iPad hooked up to share my iPad screen, but then notifications and stuff. So I'm doing this actually in the browser, on the web. On the web, it's Spider-Man. But you can see Spider-Man, Ditko Spider-Man, the webs are real close together. Whereas Romita's Spider-Man, they're a little bit more spread apart. And actually, his first several issues, he was told to ape Steve Ditko's style. So John Romita's early work on Spider-Man isn't really representative of what his Spider-Man would come in all of his characters, Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, Green Goblin. His work in his early issues don't look like what everybody thinks about what his work is, because he was told to mimic somebody else's style, and he eventually just developed into his own. So we're not quite there yet. You can definitely see the classic Romita style in these issues, but it's not there yet. So anyway, but number 39 is notable because Green Goblin learns that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. This is all in issue 39, but he dulls in 39 he dulls Spider-Man spider sense, and he just follows him to an alley and watches him get changed out of his costume, takes his mask off, and Peter's like, Peter even makes mention, well, it's a good thing that I can, that I can change in this alley, because my spider sense would tell me if anybody was watching. It's a good thing that it's not buzzing right now. And Green Goblin's like on his goblin glider up in the air. I can see who he is. And so at the end of that issue, Green Goblin kidnaps, I don't know if you say kidnap, but kidnaps Peter in front of his house in Queens. They have a bit of a fight. Peter gets knocked out. Green Goblin catches him, realizes that, and let's see, we'll go ahead and page through. So right at the end, right at the very last panel of that issue is when we learn as the audience for the first time that Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin. Now, obviously, we know who he is now, but back in '66, I don't know if anybody had any inkling of it or what, but the last panel of number 39 is where we learn that Norman Osborn is Green Goblin. So, right here is the very first, oh my gosh, you're Harry's dad. Harry's in my class is what Peter's saying. So this issue is notable because there's basically two main things that happen in this. We learn about how Norman Osborn became the Green Goblin. And then there's a big fight between the two, and the whole time Peter is worrying about Goblin finding out his identity, because he had just been told by Aunt May's doctor that she's so sickly. It's his aunt, but yet she's always depicted as a grandma. So that's why I actually kind of like Marissa Tomei as Aunt May in the movies, because if he's, by this issue, he's right around 19, maybe 20. He's at college age. Well, his aunt should be like average in her 40s, maybe 50, but she's always depicted as like a grandma character, always real weak and frail. So Aunt May's doctor had told him last issue, no surprises for Aunt May. You've got to be super chill, because the slightest little surprise, anything like that could kill her. Oh my gosh. Which sounds kind of weird. If she gets surprised, she'll die. I don't know. So Peter's worrying about that the whole time. So we'll get to that in a minute. So it's this whole thing about Peter's tied to a chair. And a lot of this issue, as we page through here, is just Norman. So you can see on these pages, Norman basically just stating what it was like to have Harry as a son and what happened. He and Wendell Strom were partners, which that's a big revelation because Wendell Strom popped up. He created did he create the Spider Slayers? I think he did. And when he popped up in the earlier issues, there was hinted at, he referred to a partner. We didn't really know who it was or what his connection to anybody else was. So now we know that Norman Osborn and Wendell Strom were partners. So these pages are basically just, you can see here that here's him taking the goblin serum, or not it's not called that at the time. But this is where he takes all that stuff. Boom! Second later, the world exploded before me. And this is where he kind of gets his goblin powers and he's being operated on and all this stuff. This is all flashback. Go back to that. So again, this is all just origin story. So like we're halfway through the issue already, and we're still learning about Norman's origin. And the whole time, Peter's trying to wiggle free of these steel cables. And then, of course, as is very typical in these old issues, there's always got to be at least a few panels, if not a whole page, of Aunt May worrying to death about Peter. He's going to catch cold. Oh no, he's so sickly. My poor Peter, he's so frail. Let's see. There's one panel in here here it is. Or maybe it's not this one. Yeah, it is this. So let me go here. At the end of the last issue is when Green Goblin kidnapped Peter Parker, right? He did so by following him home from stopping a crime that the Green Goblin had set up so that he could draw Spider-Man out. He followed Peter home. They had a little bit of a tussle in his front yard, and then he captured him. And then that's where we came into this issue with, Peter's tied to a chair and all that. Aunt May is worrying that she said he's never stayed out this late before. But then in this panel, it says, wondering why nothing has been heard of Spider-Man these past few days. So one of the notes I made was, wait a minute, exactly how long is it being captured? That's kind of weird. That's a little bit of a flub right there, I think, because if he had been gone for a few days, Aunt May probably would have been dead already. She's so worried about him staying out late. He's probably she probably would have been dead if he really had been gone for a few days. So anyway, Aunt May, typical Aunt May, she's worrying. This is funny too. They have an argument about these old issues are so funny. So they have an argument about Peter says, "Well, I can beat you if I want because I beat you every other time we faced off, and you've never defeated me." And Green Goblin says, "Oh, yes, I have. Or the only reason I've never beat you before is because I didn't want to." So it's one of those things where me and my son, when we play a game and he wins, it's like, oh, because I let you win, or vice versa. Oh, I let you win, Daddy. That kind of thing. They literally argue about who could beat who and who hasn't beaten who because of the other person let them win or not. It's really funny. And these kind of gadgets are very widespread in early comics. So Green Goblin actually has this device where he can project his thoughts onto, out into the wall or whatever. And they actually, then they have to go through and sort of recap every time. Hold on. There we go. They have to go back and recap every time they fought, which I think up to this issue they ran into each other 3 times before, I believe. The first appearance when he tussled with the Enforcers. There was another one where Human Torch was involved, and I'm blanking on where the Crime Master, yeah, where he was involved too. Basically, there's several pages just recapping their encounter. Finally, they break free. There's a big fight. And the rest of the issue is just a good old classic Spider-Man, Green Goblin fight. And these are really fun. Again, John Romita art. It's not exactly what up to snuff for him, because he's aping Ditko style. We'll get to that. I think about the Death of Gwen Stacy. That era of John Romita. That's probably the most classic. Wait, was that him that drew that? Shoot, I probably should know that. They're fighting. Throughout all of this, Peter is still worrying about. He knows my secret. What am I gonna do? Hey, what's up, Dark Sage? There's one comics character I would like to see expanded more and have own. Who's that? Tell me about that. And I knew this was coming. As I was reading this, I knew this was coming. And I was hoping it wouldn't be, because again, I've read these issues. I've read like the real classics several times, but I haven't read any of them in a long time. But a lot of these I've never read. So it's been a real treat to go through these. Hey, how about right here, if you guys can think back to 2002, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, when he threw all the I want to say batarangs, but they're not batarangs. But this kind of borrows from that, or that kind of borrowed from this a little bit. I want to see him like Matrix dive or whatever. But they're still fighting. I mean, this is like an action-packed issue. They're still fighting. And then here's what I was worried about right here. And let me zoom in right here. Hold on one second. Here's what I was worried about. So at the end of it, Norman gets knocked out. Classic case of amnesia. Classic case. Oh, I forgot everything. I don't remember. So it's actually twice as convenient, because not only does he no longer remember who Spider-Man was, but he also forgets being a horrible father to Harry. So his memory only goes back to about as far as when Harry was, or when Harry was younger and he was a good father. So this is all about, oh, I've got amnesia. I don't remember anything. Spider-Man's relieved. Yay. And because I guess that is okay, Spider-Man just lets him go. He's like, oh, I got to change him out of his costume. I'm gonna throw it in the fire and carry him out. Don't worry about this guy, officers. He's okay. He's a-okay, Oh, and he justified it because he said his spider sense would have warned him, which his spider sense doesn't really work that way. Unpopular opinion, I've always loved the character of Doomsday from the DCU. I know he was prominent in the Death of Superman story and has many forms across a ton of comics. I believe theirs is so much more. Doomsday, yeah, I mean, they could do a lot with him. There was the Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey series from the 90s. I want to say it was like the later 90s that kind of explored his backstory. That would be cool. It would be cool if there was more to him other than just a rampaging killing machine. I'd like to see that. I'd read anything about Doomsday's awesome. I'd read anything about Doomsday. So yeah, if you haven't, check out the Doomsday Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey. They do explore his origins, but they don't really flesh him out a lot. I think like what you're talking about, but that'd be cool. Sorry guys, gotta stay hydrated. So anyway, the classic amnesia line, and he does. That happens a lot, and I knew it was going to happen here. But I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, old Stan Lee kind of wrote himself into a corner by having Norman learn Peter's secret so early. So I guess there was nothing, and back in the day, this was all the first time for everything. So like now it would be cliche, but back then it was the original. This is when it all first happened. So you have to make a lot of allowances for these old comics, because there's a lot of silly stuff. There's a lot of silly stuff, but they're charming. Most of them are charming. Some of them are annoying. So anyway, Norman has amnesia. Spider-Man lets him go. Peter he did have a cold in issue 39. I don't really know. That didn't really ever come into play anywhere. That really only gave him an excuse to go visit the doctor, that's when he told him that Aunt May was this close to death. If the wind changes, Aunt May's going to die. So it's a little ridiculous. But Aunt May's fine. He's back all's right with the world. Here we see Norman getting all rested up. Harry's, looking after him, and we're good. So that's a really cool. I didn't love the amnesia ending, but there's not really much more you can do with it. And it was a cool 2-part story that, like I said, the first 2 issues that John Romita drew, which one of my favorite artists, I was super excited to get to these. Plus, there's nothing more classic in comics than Spider-Man versus Green Goblin. So that was fun. So next issue, the one I read today, the one that we'll be covering next Sunday, is first appearance of Rhino. So that was a pretty good issue too. But we'll get to that next week. So moving on to Tales of Suspense number 81. And you guys are going to have to forgive my little peek behind the curtain. Like I said, I'm running all these in a browser. So you're going to see some weird shifts as we go through all this. So Tales of Suspense, since number 59, has been a double feature for between Iron Man and Captain America. So I started off wanting to read Iron Man, and I wanted to go from the beginning. So I started off with Tales of Suspense, and I thought that would be good because I also wanted to eventually got to where I wanted to read some Captain America. And so here they are, both are. This title, this is number 81. It runs through issue number 99. And then Tales of Suspense ends, and Iron Man goes off into number 1, and Captain America continues the Tales of Suspense numbering with number 100. And that is I don't quite remember. It's right around, I was going to try to see, it's right around April, May of 1968. So we'll be hitting that one at the end of December of this year. Captain America number 100 will be on actually January 2nd, 2021. And Iron Man number 1 will be on January 4th. So I told you I had a calendar of everything because I'm that nerd. I'm that nerd that does this. Anyway, so where we're at so this first episode is going to be weird too because I'm not starting at the beginning for this show. So everything we're talking about, we're in the middle of a bunch of different stories. So right now, Iron Man is in the middle of losing everything. There's a guy named Senator Byrd. He is determined to take down Tony Stark. He wants to. He thinks he's flaky. He doesn't trust Iron Man. He thinks it's weird that Iron Man is Tony Stark's bodyguard and won't reveal the secrets of his armor. He wants to cancel all of Tony's government contracts. He wants Iron Man to turn himself in so that they can learn all about his armor. And Tony's been dodging it for a while. I'll say this real quick too. Tales of Suspense back in this era is annoying to read because every single issue is Iron Man fighting somebody, but he's always out of juice. He's always got to recharge. He's at the point where he has to wear his full chest armor all the time. Otherwise, the metal in his chest is going to sink into his heart. So if you think about the movie, which is what more people are familiar with, he puts the reactor in his chest, and it helps keep the metal away from his heart. Right. This is the same idea, obviously, because that's where the movie came from. But he has to wear an entire chest piece, the whole thing. So, he's always complaining about not being able to have a social life. He can't have a girlfriend because of the chest piece he has to wear. And he always is out of juice. One of my tweets for one of these issues was that a 10-year-old iPhone has a better battery life than Tony Stark's armor. And I am this close to starting an Instagram of nothing but images of Tony Stark literally plugged into a wall. I have a bunch of them. I have probably 20 at least, where Tony Stark sitting in a chair like this with a plug into one end into his chest, the other end into the wall. And he's exhausted. So every issue, Iron Man is like, I'm on my last little bit of juice. if I one more repulsor blast and I'm going to be powerless and I'm going to die because the metal's going to go into my heart, blah, blah, blah. This is the first issue in a long time where he's not out of power at all. Like, he doesn't even bring it up. It's actually really quite notable. And I'll pull up my notes for this one. If you'll give me 1 second. Yep. One of the notes that I made is, let's see what panel, this right here. So, every chance that he gets, Tony makes mention that he keeps his armor in an attaché case. I've got so many tweets or notes or whatever you want to call them that say Tony keeps his armor in an attaché case, in case you didn't know, because he mentions it all the time. It's a good thing I brought my attaché case with me, or else I wouldn't have my armor. Or, I've got to remember to bring my attaché case with me because that's where that's where I secretly store my armor. All the time. He talks about it all the time, in case you didn't know. Whoops. And I messed that up. Okay. I thought this was cool. This page was cool, though, because it shows it how it actually goes in there. It's kind of neat. It's like the way his armor works in this era is that it's kind of like, those like those plastic cups that you can smash down, and they go from a cup like this to like a real flat one. That's how his armor works. So, like you can see right here, he's literally smashing his glove down, which is kind of neat. I kind of think that's neat. And then, of course, the yellow, like the leggings and the arms, like they pull up out of that, which is obviously impractical, but it's neat, And for back in the 60s, it was actually a pretty cool idea. So here in this panel, he mentions he's got his armor in an attaché case, and then in the next one, how could anyone ever suspect that an entire suit of super powerful iron armor is neatly stored away in my lightweight attaché case? He's talking to himself about his awesome attaché case. Attaché case? I don't know. So anyway, there is not a whole lot that happens in this Iron Man story in this issue. Oh, I thought this was cool too. Let's zoom in this way. I guess his armor's flexible because he can sort of fold it up, and there's like a little vacuum, and it says an automatic gust of compressed air instantly whisks it inside into the proper set. So his suitcase basically has a vacuum cleaner, and it sucks his flexible iron mask in. That's cool, right? That's neat. I mean, who wouldn't want that? So yeah, there's not a lot that happens in this issue. This is kind of a setup for next issue. But we will, we'll go through it. He's on his way to Washington. He finally was willing to go to Washington to meet with Congress or whoever it was to talk about Iron Man's secrets, about the secret of his armor. And he's lamenting the fact that he might have to reveal his identity. So he's, I guess the cops are taking him to the airport for whatever reason. I'm not really sure. I guess maybe they're trying to rush him there. He gets to the airport, but he knows it's going to take too long, so he's going to fly away. And here it was. I was like, oh man, this isn't going to be good. He's flying to Washington under his own power. Or is he sure he has enough juice for that? But he does, I guess, because he never mentions it. So the rest of it is just, here's Senator Byrd. This is the guy that doesn't like him. And so the way this works in the browser real quick is sometimes I can't fit the whole thing, so we'll have to sort of flip back and forth. But this is Senator Byrd. I have an important announcement to make. I've just learned that Tony Stark has agreed to testify before our committee. I was trying to think if there's any, there's not a whole lot else that's going on in this one. He hasn't actually got there yet to testify. But he's on his way. And then Titanium Man shows up again. So Titanium Man is basically the Russian version of Iron Man. There's a lot of, back in the 60s, there's a lot of, the Russians and the Chinese are in these comics. I'm not saying this for me now. I'm just saying in these comics back in the day, they were the bad guys, the communists, because that was what was going on back then, So Titanium Man is basically the Russian Iron Man, and they want to learn the secrets. They've built their own armor, but they want to learn the secrets of Iron Man's armor too. So we haven't seen Titanium Man in a while, and I don't have the issue in front of me when he last showed up. But one thing I thought was cool was I like this design of Titanium Man is a lot better than what we got earlier. He was a lot more boxy in the earlier appearances, so this one actually looks a lot better. His face, though, his face looks weird. But yeah, I mean, they basically just they've got to, it's a new set of armor, and they want him to go intercept Iron Man on his way to Washington. But before they do, they have to test it. Nerd Force, what's up? Oh, what's up, man? Don't respond to this. Sorry, man. It's okay. It's all good. This is like the pilot episode. So, like I said, I eventually would love to put this on YouTube and maybe even make it an audio podcast. But today, it's just a trial run. No, you're not breaking my flow at all, dude. Don't worry about it. I don't really have a flow. Actually, I think it's been going okay so far. I just don't know that, this is very niche for, not a whole lot of people are interested in these old books, but I am, and I love to talk about them. So I was actually super nervous. Like, I was really, really nervous. Like, right at 8 o'clock, I was like, I don't know, maybe I should just cancel because I'm going to be horrible at this. But so far, I think it's been all right. Again, if you're interested in this stuff, and a lot of people aren't, and that's totally fine. But I think these old issues are fun. And like I said, it's fun. It's gonna be fun to see these comics evolve. The 70s era is really good of Marvel Comics, so it's gonna be really cool to see these stories mature a little bit, get away from the silliness. The art's gonna improve, the layouts are gonna improve. Oh yeah, you and me, bro. Yeah, I could listen and talk comics 24/7. But yeah, so some of these older comics are really hard to get through because they're really long. They take forever to read. They're very verbose. A lot of these. One thing I probably should have mentioned about all these is that the fights are a little silly because it's kind of like when you're a kid and you're at your friend's house and you're outside playing, and so the fights will be like, I'm gonna shoot a repulsor ray at you, and then the bad guy will block it. I bet you weren't expecting me to put up my electro shield. And then the other guy will say, well, actually, yes, I was expecting your electro shield, and I'm going to counter that with neutron missiles. And then the bad guy will say, aha, but I have magno reverse missiles that can... so they have to it's like how anime has to announce all their attacks, but it's really weird. And eventually... Trust me, comics get away from that. So there's just a lot of words to read because everybody talks everything. Nowadays, half of the story is told through the artwork in modern comics. So you don't have to read what's going on, you can just see it. But in these old ones, they say everything. If you see a character sitting in a chair, the character will say, it's a good thing I'm sitting in this chair because I'm really tired, Yeah, talking about the process of making comics before, like the limitation of certain colors. Like Daredevil, for example, has a red suit because getting yellow ink for his suit was hella hard, and so they use red. Really? I didn't know that. Hulk. I knew about Hulk, the green and the gray with Hulk. I didn't know about Daredevil, though. I thought that they just thought that the red and the yellow and the black and the red just looked dumb because it did. And it's funny because in Daredevil number 7, which is the first appearance of his red suit, they barely even acknowledged it. There was like one panel where Daredevil said, I've been working to upgrade my gear or something. He makes like one quick mention and that's it. And I always thought maybe that, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, whoever else, were just sitting around saying, you know what? It's been 6 issues and Daredevil looks ridiculous. So that's pretty cool. Oh, that's really neat. I had no idea. See? You learn something new every day. All right, so back to Titanium Man and Iron Man. So they have to test the Titanium Man armor before he can go get Iron Man. So what do? They shoot him with a big-ass rocket, point blank. And they do say, we've only got time for one test. Take your place in the projectile pad now. Well, I'm glad that it worked because that is look at this. I'm gonna stand point blank in front of a giant missile. Go for it, and they do it, and it works, and he's fine. Hits him boom. It's like that that image of the guy, or the black and white image of the guy getting hit in the stomach with the cannonball. But yeah, look, he still stands. Thank goodness, because that would have been bad if he didn't. Yeah, I'm just gonna take this rocket like a man. I know. Yeah, so that's a little bit weird. But it's cool. So anyway, Iron Man is flying to Washington. And so one thing about these issues is the last few issues have been drawn by a guy named Gene Colan, and Colan. And I like his artwork for the most part. He draws Iron Man a lot more fluid and a lot more kind of stretched out, if you can see here. There is another artist named Don Heck who draws, he's right, in this era, he's drawing Avengers. But he drew Iron Man for a while, and he drove me crazy because he draws Iron Man spread eagle, like when he flies, arms spread like this, and I can't show you because I'm sitting down, but his legs also spread. So think about if you're doing a belly flop and you spread your arms and your legs like this. Don Heck draws Iron Man flying that way, and it drives me nuts because wouldn't his then rockets be shooting out this way, and he'd be, I don't know, it's weird. So I was happy to see Gene Colan on this book because he draws Iron Man with a lot more fluidity, a lot more like stretched out, and actually maybe a little bit too bendy like this. That looks like that hurts. Yeah, that would stop him in midair. I know, right? It drives me crazy seeing that. So he's still drawing Avengers at this time, but Iron Man isn't in Avengers at this time. So we don't have to see it too much. Anyway, so Iron Man, not a big deal. He's on his way to Washington, and they are, meanwhile, the Russians are launching Titanium Man? I think he's in the rocket. They're launching it at Washington. And then it's weird because the timing wouldn't work. Like, how does he get to Iron Man from Russia when Iron Man only has to go not so far to Washington? I don't know. So it was a little weird. But so anyway, this issue was a little bit of a setup for things to come. Yeah, it's like 10 years between this and where we're at now in comic book time. It's strange. And there was actually a series not too long ago that I read a little bit about it, and it's on Marvel Unlimited, but it's a series about the history of the Marvel Universe, and basically its purpose was to sort of retcon the history so that Tony Stark did still get captured during a war, but it wasn't the Vietnam War. It was a made-up war in a made-up country, and it wasn't as far back as when Vietnam was. So it was basically a way to keep all the historical bits, but to make all the characters not like 80 years old or whatever. So I haven't read it though, but I think I'd like to. So anyway, that's where we left off with Iron Man. So next week we'll be probably covering a big fight with him and Titanium Man, which is cool because Titanium Man's pretty neat. And the fact that he hasn't been in a movie is kind of sad. Although I guess you could say that in Iron Man 2, he was kind of a... Oh, you know what? Actually, that was him. Anton... Well, I can't remember what his name was. But yeah, he played the character that's in the Titanium Man armor, but he was a sort of a combination between Whiplash, who I don't think we've seen yet, and Titanium Man. Okay, well that's a bit disappointing. So anyway, and then so the back half of this is Captain America. So we're also in the middle of a story here where the Red Skull has the Cosmic Cube, which is not a good thing, and Cap's got to stop him. Whiplash was Iron Man 2. Yeah, but it was, the character was Titanium Man. But I can't remember Anton. I want to say Anton. I can't remember. I hate that I can't remember. I should know this. But yeah, so it was a weird little mashup there. So here we've got Captain America is trying to. He's got to stop Red Skull, right? He's got the Cosmic Cube. That's not cool. I love this. So Jack Kirby is doing these, and Jack Kirby draws motion. Oh wait, I think I have to. I was looking at this one. I think I'm gonna have to go this way with it because I want to show this whole panel. So I make a lot of notes about this in a lot of my tweets. I call it the Kirby motion or the Kirby impact, and you'll hear a lot about Kirby crackle too, but that's something completely different. you see a panel like this, and Ivan Vanko, thank you, that's him. Anton, where am I coming up with that? But there's so many panels like this, and there's one in Captain America number 100, which we'll get to in January, where you just feel the impact. And I love this. Jack Kirby has a great way to make you feel impact and to make you see the motion, like feel the velocity. Like he just does a lot with motion. Like he makes you feel what you're seeing instead of just actually just looking at something on a page. You turn the page, see Cap kicking Red Skull in the back, and you feel it. And he's so good at that. But basically, this issue is just a fight. Cap is trying to get Red Skull to drop the friggin'... Oh, yeah, his right leg. Yeah, that's a little bit... Mr. Fantastic, I guess. But Red Skull's got the Cosmic Cube, and Cap's just trying to beat him, which is, a lofty goal because, Red Skull can do anything he wants to with the Cosmic Cube. And in fact, he even talks about what he's going to do here. He's going to take over the world, and he's going to put together these armies and then go conquer the galaxy. And he's got big plans, So he's conjuring up dirt monsters for Cap to fight. He's got the Cosmic Cube in his hand. Sort of think about Red Skull in the movie when he had the Tesseract, although I'm not sure that was really supposed to be the Cosmic Cube, because obviously it was I guess not, because it was the space gem. But it would be weird to have a movie with Red Skull and the Cosmic Cube now, because there was already a magic cube, so I guess we're just never going to get the Cosmic Cube in a movie. You can give feedback whenever you want, bro. There's one thing I wanted to get to, though, here. So this is just a fight. Cap is fighting like a dirt monster. One thing I thought was cool, though... Comics Now? Well, see, so Comics Daily comes from my Twitter account, right here. So I thought it was kind of a fun... Well, I thought it was a fun play on words, though. Comics Daily Weekly. Kind of thought it was a fun play. But we might think about that, because that sounds pretty good, too. There is a play right here. I love this because... let me change to this so you can see the whole thing. I love this because Red Skull is about to just vaporize Captain America, right? And Cap says, wait, if you want the greatest triumph of all, let me remain, let me serve you. Think of it, the Red Skull with Captain America as his helpless underling. I love this because, and I made a note of this, that this basically is kind of foreshadowing the Hydra Cap from the Secret Empire storyline from a couple years back. But it was sort of, because Cap is tricking Red Skull here, but he's tricking him. So it's almost like, hey, don't do that. Let me serve you instead. And then, 50 years later? Red Skull actually uses the Cosmic Cube to rewrite history so that Cap was always an undercover Hydra operative. Which, I know that sounds bizarre, and it wasn't good. I didn't like it. I didn't care for that at all. I read it, and I was glad when it was over. But it was kind of cool that I love seeing things like that here, where it's like, oh, that actually did happen 50 years later. I think that stuff's fun. But it's all a trick. And this right here actually reminds me of Skeletor in his gold armor from the He-Man movie. It looks exactly like that. It looks just like that. So yeah, he tricks him. He's gonna anoint him as his servant, I guess. And then Cap just hits him and makes him fall, and the cube falls into the water, just like at the end of Captain America: The First Avenger. Yeah, Nerd Force, I hear you, man. That Hydra Cap stuff, I've almost tuned it out because it was just so not good. I've almost tuned it out. So yeah, that was it. Red Skull falls in the water. The cube falls in the water. Cap's stuck in the middle of the water. And there you are. So Red Skull was undone by his arrogance, basically. And that's that. So Next issue is the Adaptoid. We'll be covering that one. That one is on Tuesday. We do Tales of Suspense on... No, I'm sorry, Monday. So tomorrow. And we'll talk about it next week. Next issue up is Daredevil number 20. Now, I will say that Daredevil... Obviously, the Frank Miller run of Daredevil is from the 70s, is some of the best comics ever. I mean, he totally reshaped Daredevil from this happy-go-lucky swashbuckler kind of hero to sort of a grim and gritty. He delved into he really inflated his backstory with Stick and Elektra, the Hand. He turned the Kingpin into an actual like mob boss, kind of like the Kingpin of crime, you know. So obviously those are some of the best comics ever, and I read them a couple years back. They still hold up, and so I was thinking, these old issues of Daredevil are going to be real silly. But this is some of my favorite comics every week are these Daredevil. Probably Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Fantastic Four are my three favorites every week. So in this issue, this issue features the Owl, and I don't like the Owl because the Owl is stupid. But wait a second. Let me get my page back. There we go. So in this issue, the Owl, who is kind of like the Penguin, sort of, the Owl is on his Owl Island, his Owlland, if you will, and he wants to. Actually, I don't remember. This story wasn't the best. He basically sends some goons out to kidnap Matt Murdock because the Owl wants to be represented in a quote-unquote court to be absolved of his crimes legitimately. However, the Owl set up the court on his island, and the Owl is acting as the judge. And he's already stated that he's not... Whatever happens, he's not going to be punished for what he did, but he still wants to be absolved of his crimes. So the first few pages are just Daredevil fighting off some of his goons. Nothing special. Just, Daredevil trickery and acrobatics, things like that. This is Gene Colan also. So we looked at Gene Colan in the Iron Man side of Tales of Suspense. It's him here too. Daredevil's, he's changing his clothes. I love this panel because I made a note of this too, because they take longer to debate whether they should look in the bedroom for Matt Murdock than it would take them just to actually look in the bedroom. I think stuff like that is funny. Again, in these old era of comics, they have to speak out everything. That must be the bedroom. Might as well take a squint in there. It'll just be a waste of time to look in the bedroom. Let's just wait. Well, what else are you going to do? I say we go ahead and look in the bedroom. Just open the door. Just look for him, I just think stuff like that's funny. Daredevil's changing his clothes out on the balcony and just hanging out. I love stuff like that. So these goons, they don't even really kidnap him because the Owl wants to hire him. So they just take him on a plane. Talking heads. Oh man, there was a lot of talking. It was like a Brian Michael Bendis comic on crack. So many talking heads. Bendis does it in a good way, to where it enhances the story and develops the characters. This is just talking for talking's sake. The only thing I don't like about these Daredevil comics, and it's been going on since issue 1, every issue, there's a scene with at least 2 characters between the Matt Murdock, Karen Page, Foggy Nelson love triangle, and it's awful. Every issue, there's something like this. Wait, can you see? Every issue is something like this where Karen will say something about Matt, and then Foggy will think, if only I knew how much her feeling of sympathy for him was real and how much it was something deeper. But then Karen will say, oh, good morning, Foggy. And then Matt will say, how much of that good morning is feelings for him and how much of it is just her being a friendly coworker. And Foggy in one issue was ready to propose marriage to Karen, and they're not even dating. And I don't know if this was like something in the 60s, but there was one issue where Matt disappeared. I believe. And Karen said something about, if Matt doesn't come back, I might as well marry Foggy. So it was like, I don't know if it was a thing in the 60s, or I guess women were just expected to get married. I don't know. But it's almost, or it's actually just the writing. So women in these 60s Marvel books are written horribly. They're treated terrible. They are reduced to, like, there's an issue with Sue Storm is relegated to cleaning. Like, they come back from a mission, and Reed and Johnny and Ben sit down and they're all bushed, and Sue's like, well, I guess I better get started cleaning the Baxter building. I mean, it's awful. They're written terribly, and Karen Page is probably the worst. So this goes on. Yeah, it's awful. So anyway, that's the. I'm not even going to bother talking about this, because anytime you see a scene with at least 2 out of 3 of those characters, that's what that sequence is about. Karen does become a drug addict, and I'm excited to see that, because that's my experience with Karen Page, is from that era where she becomes addicted to drugs and does porn for money, and then rats out Daredevil's secret identity just to get her fix, and then she dies. So spoiler alert, that doesn't happen for like a decade from where we are now. But I am interested in seeing her character evolve from this right here, which is horrible, to, well, I guess something that's equally horrible, but in a different way. But yeah. So yada yada yada. Karen and Foggy and whatever. Who cares? It's annoying. So anyway, so here is the Owl's Island, complete with an owl. I can't zoom into this anymore, but complete with an, oh, we can't even see it. Hold on. Complete with an owl-shaped castle. Sure, why not? Leave it to Beaver, and in 63, that gives you, yeah. Well, yeah, and it's that same kind of thing. Ooh, yeah, Daredevil and Elektra. I can't wait to get there. What is that? That's going to be like 3 years from now, because if we cover 1 month every week, yeah. So, anyway, how many of these, hang on a second. Oh, shoot. You know what, guys? I'm probably going to have to split this into 2 parts, because I have to end at 9:30 to do another podcast. So I didn't actually think I would take this long to record. But it's been super fun. I'm having a blast talking about this stuff. So I might actually have to stream more of this tomorrow night. And like I said, this is a test run. So I don't know how, I don't know the timing of how long I can spend talking about each issue, that kind of thing. Super fun being here with you guys, though. I love talking about this stuff with you guys. So let's do it again for sure, because I've still got 3 more comics to cover. We've done 3. We got 3 more. I might need to cover the next 3 tomorrow night, if you guys are cool with that. Because I also have to get the boy into bed in 15 minutes too. So I might have to do that. Yeah, I did spend some time on the intro too. That was like 20 minutes worth, and that won't be every time. I promise. That was just the first time. So, yeah. So, I'll break this up. I'll do the next one tomorrow. But we'll finish out Daredevil tonight. And my apologies, because, like I said, I didn't really know how this was even going to go. I didn't even know if I'd be able to talk for a minute about each one of these. And here we are. So, this has been, like, I'm over the moon, like, having way more fun. I'm not scared of it anymore. Like, this is great. This is great. So, I'll finish it up tomorrow, too. That'll be fun. So, but we're not done with this yet. So, Daredevil is on the Owl's Island, complete with his owl castle, I guess. And I'm trying to even remember, like why this is such a bizarre story. So, he kidnapped the judge who sent him to jail originally back in Daredevil number 3, and this is issue number 20. So yeah, that's what it was. He wants to be absolved of his crimes, right? He wants to show the judge that you should have done that, because I'm not a bad dude, even though he's a bad dude. So how could I forget the judge who would sentence me to prison after the police caught me during my escape from Daredevil 17 issues ago? What can you hope to accomplish by this nonsense? Justice, Judge, the Owl's own brand of justice. Oh, here we go. I don't get it. Why bother with a trial? Why not just finish him off now? No mere sniveling lackey questions the Owl. I've waited for months for my revenge. I will not be denied. Yeah, the Owl is awful. He's terrible. So he really wants to he wants to show that he's not a criminal, but he is. He wants to do it legitimately. So I wrote here, it was a bit silly. The owl insisted everything be by the book, even though he was acting as the judge and stated how he was going to find Judge Lewis guilty no matter what. That's not legitimate. That's not. So anyway, and I hate this too. So one of the things with the owl is that he can fly? Maybe? Or maybe he just glides on the wind? I don't know. But he's sort of a rotund gentleman who can still glide on the wind for no real reason. It's not like he has the power of flight. Because it says, see, and I thought in issue number 3, he like jumps off a cliff and he glides, right? Okay, yeah, but he's sort of a big dude, and but maybe he's got a special coat. I don't know. But you could say, okay, well, there's air currents off the cliff and all that stuff, and that's fine, I guess. But now he's indoors. He just jumped up in the air. He jumped off of a step and he's gliding. And the guy says it creeps me out when I see him glide like that. Why can he glide? I don't know. He's a big dude. I don't know why he can fly, why he can glide. It's weird. He's the owl. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Just go with it. Don't think about it. So anyway, Matt Murdock comes in. He's getting filled in on it's not the owl who. I'm sorry. It's not even the owl who's on trial. It's Judge Lewis. It's the judge who put the owl away. That's what the story is. Now I remember now. Like I said, this one was weird. But he hired Matt Murdock to be Judge Lewis's lawyer, which is pretty cool. I liked about this issue because we hadn't, even though we're 20 issues in, we hadn't actually ever really seen Matt Murdock do any lawyering much. And in fact, there's even a few issues where he says it's a good thing, now I'm going to leave work early and pull a double shift as Daredevil. But then they also talk about how Matt Murdock is one of the most revered lawyers in the country. But for such a revered lawyer, he doesn't ever have a lot of work to do. He doesn't have a lot going on. So, I don't know. That's weird. But this one was cool because Matt Murdock was brought in to be the lawyer for Judge Lewis. So I thought, this is going to be cool because even though the quote-unquote court is rigged... Oh, and I made a note too that the owl is holding court. So you could say that it's the court of owls. Huh? Little Batman reference in there, maybe? Okay, never mind. It's a stretch. But I thought this story could have been really cool because even though it was a court set up by the owl, and the owl was the judge, and he had already made up his mind about Judge Lewis. I thought this is going to be cool because Matt is going to find a way to get Judge Lewis off. He's going to be such a good defense attorney that even though the owl is convinced that he's going to convict Judge Lewis, Matt Murdock is going to change his mind. And the owl's going to say, you know what? You're absolutely right. You guys can go. Instead, it just devolves into Daredevil versus the owl and his goons. And that's cool too. One thing I don't love about Gene Colan's Daredevil work is I don't love... Whoops, hang on. I took it out of full screen. I don't love that the ears come off of the side of his head like Batman. I'd rather them come off of the sort of the front like they're supposed to. I don't love the way he draws it on the side. But that's just a quick little observation. I still love Gene Colan's artwork. I just don't love the way he draws Daredevil with Batman ears. But that's just me. So yeah, there was nothing clever like Matt Murdock being a super awesome lawyer to the point that he can convince the bad guy to let the good guy go who actually had wronged him. I don't know. It wasn't that cool. It was just a fight. And I love, there was a few issues right before this that John Romita was the artist on Daredevil, which I had no idea. It was right before he took over art duties on Amazing Spider-Man. And I had no idea John Romita did a few issues of Daredevil, and they were fantastic. It was some of the best depiction of Daredevil I've ever seen. And he's with Kazar in the Savage Land. It's so cool. I really liked that. I think it was like 4 issues maybe, and it was really fun. But now we've got Gene Colan, and he's good too. So I just think Daredevil's cool because I love heroes that don't. I love all superheroes. Superman with all the powers in the world, Batman with no powers, Daredevil with not really any powers, but he's got heightened senses. What I love about Daredevil is the thought of him fighting in a completely different way because he's got the 360-degree radar sense. So, and the super hearing and all that stuff, like, he sees things behind him. I think it's so cool. And I love heroes that really don't have any powers or who do have powers, but they're not crazy powerful like Spider-Man. Like, he's got powers, but he's not, like, crazy strong, anything like that. Yeah, he doesn't let his disability stop him. He uses it. But I love heroes like that who are either no powers or low powers, I guess. But seeing how they overcome enemies who physically should just beat the crap out of them. And Daredevil's one of those. He has to find a way to be... I mean, these are just like regular thugs. But that's one of the things I love about Daredevil is just he's just different. I love his radar sense and his awareness of where everything is and how he's able to... Spider-Man's got a spider sense so he can dodge things, but Daredevil, he can see, quote-unquote, see everything all around him. I just think that's so cool. I'm on the wrong... There we go. So, yeah, the rest of it's just a fight. He trips over some pool balls. Okay. And then he gets caught in a cage. And that's where we left off. So, how is he going to get out of this one? And, I was going to say, and where are they supposed to think that Matt Murdock went? But there was a panel where he stated that he got Matt Murdock off the island. So, this was a fun one, but it's just weird. The owl is silly. I don't love the owl. Daredevil's Rogues Gallery isn't super great. Mr. Hyde's pretty cool. Whenever we get to him... we already missed the first appearance of Stiltman. I mean, I covered it, but Stiltman was silly. Daredevil's Rogues Gallery isn't great, and the owl, I don't like the owl, and he looks stupid. He's got a giant coat and he's wearing purple. I don't love it, but anyway, guys, yeah. So my sincerest apologies. I didn't know that this was going to go so long, and I do need to stop so that I can get my son into bed and then record the next episode of Anything New. Which, actually, we're going to stream it tonight. So, right back here, I'm going to stop the stream, but I'll be back in like 15, maybe 20 minutes. Bullseye, thank you. Bullseye. Kingpin. Well, okay, never mind. Forget what I said about Daredevil's Rogues Gallery. Kingpin, man. Frank Miller's Kingpin. That's awesome. He's always 10 steps ahead. And Bullseye. Yeah, and Elektra, if you could, call her a villain. I don't know. Villain. They fought sometime. But, so I'm going to kill the stream now. I'm going to be back in like 20 minutes. We're actually going to record the next episode of our Anything New podcast. And I'm going to stream it too, which is a first for us. It'll be episode 3. We got a lot of stuff to talk about this time. It is going to be more... that one is more of a podcast. So, definitely love to interact with you in chat. But I'll probably I'll probably interact through typing. Rather because it is like just a straight podcast, but we'd like to stream it also. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to come back and we are going to cover Avengers number 32. We're going to cover Strange Tales number 148, but I've only been reading the Nick Fury part of these. I haven't been reading the Doctor Strange. And then Fantastic Four number 54. So that's going to be tomorrow night. And again, my sincerest apologies for not getting through all of them tonight, but this has been a good practice run. I'll know next time either to start earlier or to not talk as much or to not have a 30-minute intro. But this has been super fun. I had a blast doing this. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow night. I'm not quite sure what time yet, probably 9 or 9:30, and we'll finish out these 3 books. And I am totally looking forward to it. So, guys, thank you very, very much. I sincerely appreciate it. Like I said, I was super nervous about doing this, didn't know how well it was going to go, and I had an absolute blast. I had so much fun doing this, and we will do it more tomorrow. So, guys, thank you very much. I'm going to go, but I will be back right here in about 20 minutes or so. So, thank you, and see you soon.